it's been a while since I sat down and talked to you, so I thought I'd go through what I've been reading so far, final thoughts on trilogies and duologies, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get into it. So, hello. It's been a little while since I sat down, I feel like. So, here we are. But I wanted to catch you up with final thoughts. I don't know if you caught up with me recently, but we wrapped up the Housemaid trilogy. I made 2 separate videos about these 2 books, and I haven't made one about this, so I kind of want to wrap up thoughts about this trilogy, and we're going to talk about One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, as well as the first book I read this year. So yeah, so if you're wondering, I have 2 videos about this already. So one is a spoiler vlog and the other is a non-spoiler vlog. I don't know why I did that, but if you read the first one and not the second one and you want to see thoughts about this one, I have that up for you. But I feel like we started off strong with the first one, but again, this is coming from someone who hasn't read that much thriller and isn't that familiar with the genre. So I feel like this is a good, what's it called? What's that word for like a book, you know? Not a filler book. What is this called? Like a want to turn your brain off, get out of a slump sort of type of book. Also, if you're new to reading, I feel like this is a really good way to kind of be engaged and like so wrapped up in a book that it'll keep you reading. You know what I mean? What was that word? But there's a word for a book in between like 2 serious books. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. I know you know what I mean, but I can't think of the word. So it's that kind of book. Again, there probably is something better than this, but for me, as like someone's not well versed in the thriller genre, I feel like this is a good place to start. Like, this is the start of a journey in the thriller genre, and I feel like it's a good way to get introduced to that kind of book. As a whole, as a series, I felt that this went on a decline. It fell off with this one, to be quite honest. This one was good, but not as good as this one. I want to focus more on talking about this one, mostly because I have talked about these 2 already. But yeah, I felt like I was invested in this book, but there was something missing from this that this one had, and I can't tell if that was because I kind of got used to the writing style and how things are structured, so I already knew what to look out for. So there was something just not as, I don't want to say thrilling, but like not as, I feel like the stakes were lower. You know what I mean? When we talk about The Housemaid is Watching, this one took me about 210 pages to get into. With a book having only 383 pages and it taking me 210 pages to actually get into, that's 54.8% of the way in, which is more than halfway and more than I needed with these 2 other books to kind of get invested in the story and really care about what was going on, which was not great, honestly, because I feel like the 2 other stories were fast-paced, but this one just moved slower and focused on details that I personally didn't care about. When it did, however, pick up on like the action and the mystery of everything, I did get invested, but I feel like I was less impressed with the twists than I was with the 2 previous books. But since I was more invested in other parts of the story of that one, that didn't really take a toll on the overall reading experience that I had with those. However, with this one, me being fed details that I didn't really care about and not being on the edge of my seat basically at all, 210 pages in, it just added on top of the fact that this book was just not as good as the other ones. I also thought that the step-by-step guide that was included in this book, if you read it you know, was just overused by the point that we got to this one. I feel like the first one was kind of like different and refreshing. I've never seen anything like that before. The second one was like, oh, like that's a callback to the first one. But then with the third one, I was like, okay, I get it, but like, can we like not do that and you just like kind of help like find like a new interesting way, or just like tell it normally? Like, I was kind of like fed up, mostly because I didn't really care about that character at that moment. Like, also, I feel like another part of these books is that they are very plot driven, but the character development is very minimal to none. I'm a character girl. I love characters. Character development, morally gray characters, love that. Give me that. These books focus on the plot only. We know surface level details about Millie, which is our main character, but on a deeper level, I know nothing about her. Also, a point that I kind of brought up, I think, in the video, I kind of made a, included this book, like the first, I don't know, like 100 pages in the Housemaid's Secret vlog that I did, but I felt like this, where was I going with this? Oh my god, I lost my train. My train of thought left me. What was I saying? I had so many thoughts in my head and one took over and I lost my train. My train ran away. What the heck? Okay. So these two, this one happened when Millie's in like her 20s. This happens a few months or years after this one. Fine. Pretty close together linearly, time-wise, okay? However, this one is about 20 years after this one. Something that I mentioned in that blog that I just told you about was that I have a problem with time skips. I don't like them at all, I'd like to say. I would rather, like, I feel like, especially with a 20-year time skip, like, so much time has passed. I barely know who you are as a character anymore. Like, she has a family, she has kids now, and I feel like I don't know you as a character. I feel like I knew you in the first two books, and then you just, like, spent 20 years without me, and you just kind of come back to me, and you're like, hey, like, let's catch up, and I know nothing about you, and it's different, and I don't know if I like that. Again, I don't like time skips, so part of that is on me, but part of that is also on the character development, because I feel like if I knew more about her in the first two books, I would care more about where she is right now. But introducing me to her husband and kids that, again, no character development, kids I've never met in my life, I didn't care. So anyway, I think I'm glad that this is the last book in the series. I gave this one a 3.3 out of 5 stars, and as a whole, as a series, I think I would give it a 3.6 out of 5 stars. First one started off strong. Second one, still good, but less than the first one. Last one was just not for me. Not my cup of tea. So I just feel like the last two could have been better. And again, just give me a little bit more character, and I feel like these would have been rated higher. But again, as an introduction to the thriller genre, I feel like this is a good little introduction. Nothing too serious, little, what is it called? Not fluff book. It's like that book before you get into like something really like fantasy, like plot driven and like hardcore. Not hardcore, but you know what I mean? Like before that book that's like 500 to 600 pages long, you need a little break. After I read One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. This is a duology. I also covered part of Two Twisted Crowns in the One Dark Window vlog that I did, but not completely. So I just want to give you wrapped up thoughts and thoughts about the series as a whole. Also, these are non-spoiler videos, so you can check those out. Read with me, kind of talk about what you thought. I feel like I have a lot to say about this duology because I had higher expectations for these two as a whole, just hearing things about how many people liked it, and I feel like for the most part these really delivered, especially One Dark Window. I actually really enjoyed One Dark Window, and it more or less met my expectations. So One Dark Window is about this girl Elspeth who lives in this kingdom that has a magical deck of cards. So there is multiple cards out there in the kingdom that can grant you magical abilities. So this is supposed to be the only form of magic there is, but there is something also called the illness, which is something that usually children get, and with this they get magical powers, and this is not approved in any way whatsoever, so these children are hunted and gotten rid of. So Elspeth tries to hide this illness that she has from everyone else, because if not, she'll be killed. And the illness gave her this monster that kind of lives in her head and protects her from anything that she might need protecting from. So she can talk to it, and they kind of just live like roommates up here. So this is a romantasy, and as someone who's not super into romance, I do read it once in a while just to kind of try to get into my romance reading little part of my life, but that hasn't happened yet. So as someone who doesn't read too much romance, I still appreciate it, and I was really happy that it was a subplot to the main plot of this book. That is done because it's a subplot. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book and I thought the magic system was really entertaining. However, with the magical playing cards, they tell you what they do, but I feel like if one card isn't mentioned so often, you forget what it does. So I feel like I would have liked a little reminder of what the card grants people as an ability when they hold it, but we didn't get that. So maybe like include like a little like glossary or a few pages explaining what each card does. But other than that, it's a really strong plot and I really enjoyed it. The only thing I wish there was more of was adventure, which I mentioned in my video, but this is when there was action, there was a lot of action. I was really entertained, but I thought that there was going to be more adventure. So maybe that's just on me, but I thought it was going to be like I don't know, like a hike through the woods, little adventure, like encountering different things and like that kind of thing, but it wasn't. Also, something that happened is that we really connect to these characters, which I didn't realize until I finished Two Twisted Crowns. Because when I finished that, I just kind of sat there for a minute and I was like, huh. Like, I'm never gonna read about these characters again. It was kind of sad for a little bit. And I was like, I didn't know that I was this emotionally invested in these characters until I realized that we're done. And that's something I didn't expect. So good on you. I ended up giving this book a 4.2 out of 5 stars. Then we move on to Two Twisted Crowns. I have to take the stickers off these books. I haven't done that yet. But I have to disclaimer that I had a 2-week span that I started this book and then didn't read it for 2 weeks. And that's because I read the second and third book of The Housemaid because I was going on vacation and I wanted like a lighter read. So that's a disclaimer because we're gonna get into this. Okay, so everything picked up with this book around page 270. But before that, I was having a really hard time getting into it. But when it picked up again, it really like picked up. That's something I didn't mention, but in the last 60 pages of this really went at full speed. So when that book goes at full speed, it really does. I was reading and reading and I couldn't stop. So once this picked up as well, I got really invested in what was happening and I couldn't put it down. But again, for those first 270 pages, which I feel like is a lot, I wasn't very interested in the story. I just think that the beginning of this book, meaning the first 270 pages, could have been condensed so we could have focused more or added more to what happened in the second half of this book. Like, I know the beginning was trying to build on something, but even with this being condensed, I feel like it still would have had the same effect. There's also multiple POVs in this book, and I'm not sure if it works completely. One POV in particular, I felt like could have been resolved way faster and we could have focused more on the main plot of this book, because that POV was secondary and I feel like it wasn't needed as much as the other 2 POVs in this book. And I feel like if we had focused more on that, we could have built on that plot and maybe added more to the journey that we need to do in this book. I'm trying to be vague. Again, the end really goes at full speed. Super invested, super interested in everything that happens. Emotionally invested, which I didn't know, in the characters. And I felt like it was the best part of the book. I was really satisfied with the ending and I felt like it was a really good way to wrap up the duology. So even though it took 270 pages though to get into, it was worth it for the second half of this book. And with that being said, I gave it a 3.7 out of 5 stars. Overall, I would recommend this if you're thinking about picking it up because it is worth it. And as a duology, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So definitely pick this up. If you're looking for a fantasy, romantasy book, has a really strong plot and a good magic system. Very interesting, I would say. And I enjoyed it. So definitely pick it up if you're thinking about it. Also, these are the special editions from Barnes & Noble. They're pretty. Sprayed edges. Cute. Anyway, so then we move on to the first book that I read this year, which was Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. This actually made an appearance in one of the vlogs that I did. I think it was like decorating the house. But then the entire month of December, I got really wrapped up in editing and like all that stuff for the videos that came out that month. But by the time I got back to this, which was 2 weeks after, I was no longer in the mood to read this. And I didn't feel like DNFing it and then coming back to it later. So this actually marks the first book ever that I've listened to on audio, at least for the last half, I feel like. Maybe, I don't know how far I was into it, but I'm guessing around like half or less than halfway. Me no longer being in the mood to read this book was mostly due to the fact that it felt really YA. I don't have a problem with the YA genre, but I feel like this in particular, the way it was written and the way the characters talk just felt very young. And I wasn't into it. What can I say? I watched the show multiple times. I'd actually watched the show, finished it for the, third time, and then decided that I wanted to pick up this book because I love the show. Theoretically, I would love the book. But this is one of the rare cases that I would say that the show is better than the book. I felt like the show condensed things and moved things around to flow better than the way this did. The show, I feel like, condensed things so much and moved it around to make it flow better and added moments with characters that really added to their relationship. You know what I mean? I think it's just better, if that's not problematic to say. I gave this a 2.8 out of 5 stars. This is a series, and I'm glad I didn't buy, I think there's 2 other ones. I'm glad I didn't buy the other 2. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to it. Maybe in Christmas time I'll pick up the next one, but I'm not sure, and I'm not gonna tell you that I am because I listened to this on audio. And I feel like I'm not an audio listener. I feel like I was gonna reserve that for books that I've DNF'd and didn't feel completely in the mood to read, which I have a few that I have to go back to, but I feel like that's what I might use audio for now, because honestly, I got through this book in a day when I listened to it on audio. I didn't listen from the beginning, I kind of picked up where I left off, but I finished in one day and I felt really accomplished after that because I've never done that, and I was like, huh, I could be listening to so many books on audio and that would add to my reading score, but I haven't done that. I'm reading everything manually, but audio might be a secret weapon for those books that I'm just not that into. So that's what I've read so far. It's a low book count, but it's really quality over quantity, I would say. I mean, 2 books, I mean, it's the Shepherd King duology, I feel. That's what it's called. But I feel like these are quality over quantity because I really like these, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I really did. So that's a win. Right now I'm reading Jurassic Park. Look out for a reading vlog coming soon. But that book is good so far. What I've read, I'm liking it. And yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna read next. Actually, you wanna know something? You wanna know something? The new Hunger Games book comes out next week. So I wanna wrap up Jurassic Park by next week so I can get to reading it and push that out because I am so excited for Hamige's games. And yeah, but right now I'm kind of like, I think there's a new season of The Handmaid's Tale coming out and I've never been more interested to read that. So that's something. Also, do you want me to tell you something? Something that nobody knows. I wouldn't say I'm reading. I was reading Manacled. Yeah, the Hermione fanfiction. Yeah, I was reading that because I felt like that's something so many people talk about and I just wanted to be in on it. And I started it back in October and I started reading other things and for some reason I abandoned that, but I want to get back to reading that as well. So yeah, that's something I'm doing. I'm around page 150. I have it on my iPad. Yeah. I don't know when I'm gonna finish that. I think that's around like 800 pages and I'm only 100 pages into it. Also, I started recording a reading vlog for that I'm going off track, but I'm kind of like, I watched it through again. I don't know, I just like my editing in that video. It's like, I sat down with you and I did like a mini mukbang and it's like half an hour long for only 100 pages in, so I'm kind of concerned as to how long that video is going to be because I've gone through and edited that quite a bit and I feel like everything in there is important. So yeah, I'm just updating you on what I want to read and I want to finish Manacled. So yeah, Manacled, Handmaid's Tale, Jurassic Park. I want to read Iron Flame. I've been telling you this for a while, I feel like. And you know what else I want to read? It's been on my mind for the past couple days. Atonement. I don't know what it is. It's calling my name. I get these calls out of the back of my head. They're like, read me. And then it gets stuck in my head for a little while. That's what happened with Jurassic Park. I got a call to read that like 2 months ago, and it's been like non-stop playing in my head, read Jurassic Park, and I'm getting that call from Atonement. So I don't know which way I'm gonna go next, but yes, I do. Hunger Games, and then I don't know which way I'm gonna go next. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Crazy. If you like this video, like, subscribe. If you want to keep up with me anywhere else, all my socials are linked down below, and I'll see you in the next one, whatever that may be.